during the discussions, particularly around the nurses. I mean, physicians are fine, but when we talk about the nurses, what's really remarkable is the fact that they were driving a lot of what was going on in the hospital. Now, they don't want to say that openly, but they really were just remarkable driving force. I heard all the backstories about what goes on in the OR and who really was moving things along, and it's just almost like the hidden figures story. That really appealed to me, just hearing about those figures that drove the excellence of the hospital.
I also think one thing that's very important about the hospital is that it acted as an engine of change for many of these nurses and doctors, that many people had come from very poor backgrounds. There were people who came from the rural South who'd never left their communities, but they somehow found the means to leave their homes, take a train or a bus, take this journey to St. Louis and start a new life. And by the time they finished the nursing program or their residency, they were part of the middle class.
The way I learned about Homer Phillips in the School of Nursing, while I was a junior in high school, I saw a brochure with information about Homer Phillips, and it was in color, and the young ladies were in those beautiful uniforms. It was the most beautiful thing I'd seen, and I had always enjoyed taking care of things. So I said, that's for me. And Miss Minnie E. Gore was the director of nursing then, so she accepted me. So September of 1952, I ended up here in St. Louis at Homer G. Phillips Hospital School of Nursing.
I was born in Detroit, Michigan. How I became acquainted with Homer G. Phillips was that the nurses came to my mother's home where my sisters were born. And so I watched their performance of nursing care. And I knew they were Homer Phillips nurses.
My sister was able to pick up KMOX in Monroe late at night, and she would hear about the legacy of Homer Phillips Hospital, and I always wanted to be a nurse. And there was a Homer Phillips graduate and a Homer Phillips doctor who had trained here, a couple of them that lived in my city. And Harriet Foster, who's a Homer Phillips graduate, encouraged my parents to allow me to come to Homer Phillips. And we were even featured in a book called The Warmth of Other Suns.
I am from Jackson, Tennessee, and I have family members who were employed here. And we did not have a hospital for Black people in Jackson. And I came to St. Louis as a child and had my tonsils removed at Homer Phillips Hospital.
I'm from Vicksburg, Mississippi. When I graduated from high school in 1963, Mercy Hospital there had a nursing school, but they did not accept Blacks. And I was scheduled to attend St. Mary's College in St. Mary's, Kansas, and all set to go. And one day in the early spring, I walked through the principal's office and I saw that brochure from Homer Phillips, and I said, well, may I have this? And of course it was okay with her. And I, read the whole book, and that was it.
I lived about 5 miles north from Homer G. Phillips. I always felt I wanted to help people, but my parents really helped me and inspired me to realize that dream. So not only was I born here, but several of my other family members, and then my daughter and my mother as well worked here. As I know if you know her, as on 1 North, which was the medical floor.
I was born here in St. Louis, and my aunt, her name is Estelle Massey, was a nurse here, and I wanted to emulate her. And my dad really talked me into it. He wanted me to be a nurse, I think, because she was one.
I'm from Evansville, Indiana, and back in the 50s, there were only 2 schools accepting African American students, and Homer G. Phillips was one, and that's how I ended up at Homer G. Phillips. Plus, I was in the Future Nurses Club in my high school, and the nurse's name was Jackson, and my maiden name is Jackson, and I wanted to be just like her, so that's how I ended up being a nurse.
I lived 4 or 5 blocks from Homer Phillips as a child. I recall many nights as a young kid being taken to Homer G. Phillips Hospital for one ailment or another. I always, even as a young child, remember wanting to take care and heal people. So nursing has always been in my blood. And Homer G. Phillips was right in my neighborhood. And I'm so very proud to see the students with their uniforms and their white caps and things.
I was born here in St. Louis, and I lived in the Ville, so we were in walking distance. I had 6 family members that worked at Homer G. Phillips. So family was full of medicine, and that was always my desire, to be in medicine. So